WWE's debut on Netflix just ended a few minutes ago. I want to do a review and give my thoughts on this. So both WWE and AEW had a very interesting early, January, first week of January situation go on because Dynamite is now being simul-streamed on streaming on Max and WWE's going to Netflix. Now, I did watch this past week's AEW Dynamite and I was very disappointed. It felt like just a show. There was nothing special about it, and AEW had an opportunity. And hold on, I'm going to talk about WWE, but I'm making a point here. Just bear with me. It'll make sense in a minute. So, with Dynamite, it was just a show. Like, nothing really special happened. There were like 2 angles. They didn't have any big twists or any hook for the following week. Like, there was no hook. There was no cliffhanger. And you have to have cliffhangers on these shows to get us to come back the next week. So after that show ended, I was very let down. But then here comes Raw. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Triple H has been a really good booker for the past 2.5 years. So this show should be a banger show. I gotta be honest. This show was a letdown. This was a massive disappointment. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of the show, but I am very let down by this show, and I'm going to go into why. So first and foremost, the good thing is the production was phenomenal. Like, they have a new ring now where it's like black, and I like the way it looks. They've got obviously sponsors everywhere. Raw has sort of a newish kind of set. Everything looked very refreshed. Everything looked very like a new era was beginning. They even did a thing where they projected a video when the show started, like a history of wrestling type of show, or type of a video, and then it was very much like Pride Fighting used to do. And then the curtains went down and the ring was shown, and Triple H was there and he introduced the Netflix era. Now, everything seemed really exciting at first, but there were a couple things that really caught me off guard. Again, the pros, the production. I will say that the matches, specifically Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan and Punk versus Seth, both those matches definitely were fun. Roman versus Solo certainly did deliver. Lots of run-ins, lots of like story tie-ins and things like that. But there's a couple of major issues. First of all, when the show started, they had that video package talking about the history of wrestling, and Triple H was using terms like face and heel, and so it was almost like he was telling people like, yes, this is all good guys and bad guys. And look, I understand, listen to me, I understand that everybody on earth knows wrestling's a work. Everybody knows it's predetermined. It's not a secret anymore. But I don't want to hear things like babyface versus heel and stuff like that, those carny terms, in the WWE show. Like, when they start using insider terms like that, it takes away from sort of the illusion of the magic that is wrestling, at least for me. So that caught me off guard. Then came The Rock. Now, when The Rock shows up, whenever The Rock's made these comebacks, it's one of two things. Either he's going to take up a bunch of time and make little jokes and stuff like that and just be an entertaining speaker, or he's going to come back for a reason, for a purpose. So The Rock opened the show. Now, obviously, The Rock he already announced he was going to be on this show, and like we talked about, they already teased multiple upcoming matches with Rock. However, let me ask you a question. Did we skip a year? Like, is there a year of wrestling that we missed and it just happened to fly by? Because what the hell is up with The Rock? I was completely baffled. He comes out there and he cuts a promo about the Netflix era, and he puts over these like Netflix executives that nobody cares about, and is just talking about this partnership and this and that, right? And that's fine. Like, that's okay. But then he gives Cody a shout out and puts over Cody and Roman. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. This is not the Final Boss character. Rock came out with the Final Boss music and the outfit and the Muhammad Ali title, but this is not the Final Boss. And then, to make matters even more confusing, he comes out and he shakes Cody's hand, gives him a hug, and he says that Cody's been carrying the company well. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So, is this supposed to be Dwayne Johnson, the executive out there, and not the final boss Rock? This was one of the strangest things ever. So, they clearly were planning to do Cody versus Rock as a major feud this year. It was teased the night after WrestleMania. The Rock has a clean, well, not a clean, but he has a pinfall victory over Cody Rhodes on WrestleMania 40 Saturday on night one. And now it seems like all of that's been thrown away. Rock comes out and shakes hands with Cody and gives him a hug and puts him over. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then he made one little joke about Mama Rhodes, but let's not forget that last year, The Rock really got heat by bringing up Cody's mom. And all of this stuff went down, and I'm completely baffled by this. We had heard rumors that Rock was not going to make it to WrestleMania 41, that he might not be on the show, even though he was supposed to wrestle Cody. Now it seems like we're sort of in this weird place where all the plans have changed. Is Rock just not wrestling again? Because it gets even more weird. He puts over Roman Reigns. And then after the tribal warfare match, The Rock comes out. Now at this point, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to probably lay out Roman, and they're going to do Roman and Rock this year at WrestleMania, which is what they've been wanting to do for the past few years. We're finally going to get it. But instead, and the whole thing is the ceremony of putting the red flowers, the Samoan red flowers, on on the tribal chief. And I thought Rock was going to show up and take those away from Roman, put them on himself, right? But no, he comes out and he puts them on Roman and shakes his hand and hugs him. I am completely baffled by this. This is not the final boss, Rock. Are we not going to have Rock versus Cody? Are we not going to have Rock versus Roman? Is Rock not going to be the super monster heel that he was last year that we all loved? What in the world happened? What happened? I am so completely confused. So maybe the rumor of The Rock not wrestling at Mania is true, but that doesn't mean that he has to just ignore the final boss, erase everything that happened the last year, and just go back to being like a cheerleader for Cody and Roman, the two matches that we knew were left in Rock's tank. We knew that The Rock wanted to get in there with Cody and Roman. So is all of that now permanently canceled? And is Cody just going to forgive him? What about the whole story that they teased last year, where Rock handed Cody something? Is all that dropped? Are they dropping all that? If that's the case, dude, Triple H is starting 2025 not very good. I mean, I'm just being honest. The Rock thing really put a bad taste in my mouth. But it gets even more unusual. So, Rhea Ripley beats Liv Morgan, and then The Undertaker comes out. Now, that was cool. He waves to the crowd, whatever. That's fine. That was a fine segment. But before that, John Cena comes out, and he talks about his terrible win-loss record for the past couple of years, and more than that, past few years. And he talks about how him being the 17-time champion is probably impossible, but bottom line is he's going to enter the Rumble. Now, I'm going to probably do a separate video on this, but Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, if that's the WrestleMania main event, I am not into that. I am not into it, man. I don't think that's a good match for Cena or for Cody. I'm not against them doing that match on another pay-per-view. I'm not against that. But WrestleMania, I know they want to do this big, like, Cena's going to go for the last trophy. One last big run. And I just don't know if they should be putting that title back on Cena. Like, I'm going to do a separate video on this, okay? But the rumor right now is they're going to do Cena versus Cody and Gunther versus Goldberg. Now, we knew they were going to do Gunther versus Goldberg because of the angle they shot in Atlanta at Bad Blood, which, by the way, that's the same show The Rock came out and pretty much looked at Roman and Cody and kind of made it intimations that he was going to go after them. Now he's all of a sudden cool with them. I don't understand what the fuck is going on. This was the strangest shit. So, Gunther and Goldberg, I'm not against that match happening at like Saudi or a different show, but at WrestleMania, dude, like Gunther's one of the best in-ring guys they have, and he's going to have a 4-minute match with Goldberg because you know it's not going to go long. I'm very scared about what this WrestleMania build is going to be because the build up to WrestleMania last year, 40, was phenomenal. And the build up to the one the year before, 39, was also really, really great. That was the peak of the Bloodline angle. But what the hell is going on now with the Bloodline and with The Rock? Like, I'm so confused. And the rumor of Punk versus Roman, that's certainly a possibility. I don't know how they're going to get there. Obviously, Punk says that Heyman owes him a favor, but what that favor is, could it be just a match with Roman? Doesn't seem like something Punk would actually like use up a favor for. So we'll see what they do, but I'm not against Punk versus Roman by any means, right? But I think having Rock sort of give up the Roman match, if he even did that. Again, understand, I'm very confused because the character of The Rock that we saw tonight was not the final boss. And I thought he was going to be the final boss until after the Roman and Cody matches, and then he can go back to being, babyface Dwayne, and he's their friend. But we got to get the matches out of the way first, so that way they can draw the most money. The whole thing just felt really hokey. So, again, this show, there was also a Drew McIntyre Jey Uso match. This show, and Jey Uso won, this show had some really good in-ring matches. There was about 4 of them. And it had, like, surprise appearances. Oh, let me talk about Hulk Hogan. So Hulk Hogan comes out. And everything he says, that LA crowd was booing. Like, they did not even give him a chance to speak. They were booing and booing and booing. And I'm over here thinking, why are they booing Hulk Hogan? Well, the possible reason is because Hulk Hogan supported Donald Trump this year and was very vocal in his support for Donald Trump. And obviously, Los Angeles in California is very blue. They're very left-leaning. They're not going to like Trump. And so they booed the hell out of Hogan. Now, as much as I understand people's like anger for, politics, like I don't like talking about this stuff on my channel, but for me specifically, if a celebrity endorses a candidate, to me, it doesn't really take away from the importance of that celebrity. Meaning that I felt like the fans were a little bit disrespectful to Hulk Hogan. And I understand the guy has not, he's not been a perfect person. Don't forget the racist tapes. Like, Hogan has a very slimy side to him, but he is also a legend. So the segment, it wasn't so much about my personal feelings on the segment, right? You can think whatever you want to, and I will too. It was more so the fact that the segment came off really awkward. Like, I'm watching it and it's very, very awkward. Very weird. And you know what I mean? Like, it was a strange situation. The show was very, very strange because the production was incredible. It felt like a PLE in some ways. It's funny because AEW has almost too much wrestling, and sometimes WWE doesn't even have enough. Also, I was very let down by the lack of Penta appearing, because they specifically said January on Netflix. But I'm guessing they probably mean next week because they have Chad Gable against a mystery opponent, and I'm sure that's Penta. But why didn't Penta come out this week? Like that, I thought for sure it would be this week. Very, very awkward show. Again, Punk versus Seth was a good match. Punk won clean. Now, one of the things that I hated about the AEW show is that the AEW show had no cliffhanger, no hook for the future, right? The same thing with this show. When Punk beat Seth, I thought for sure they would have somebody come out to tease a future match or program or angle or something for the future. No, This show had absolutely no hook. I'm very disappointed. SmackDown this past week was incredible. I love SmackDown. But this Raw was a massive, massive letdown for me. Massive, massive letdown. Like maybe I had my hopes up too high. Maybe it was a very weird show. It really feels like they just skipped a year and this whole thing should have happened the following year. I mean, if you want to do Roman versus Punk, I always thought it made sense to do Roman and Rock first, then Roman and Punk the following year. You know what I mean? Like Roman and Rock at 41 and then Punk and Roman at 42. Or you could do Cody versus Rock at 41 and then do Punk and Roman at 43 if you're going to do Rock and Roman at 42. But none of that seems to be happening now. You know, it's very confusing. I do not want to see Cody versus Cena. And this entire buildup really made me feel I wasn't happy with it. And I'm honestly feeling that this boom period that WWE's been on, this streak, might be coming to an end. The show was boring also. Like I don't know what to tell you. And they also kept doing this thing where they kept cutting to the crowd, showing the wrestlers there, sort of like what UFC does. And at one point they cut to this rapper. They start playing this music, they cut to this rapper, and then Jey Uso comes out. And it was so confusing because I was like, why are they cutting to this guy? Like, is he going to be like performing? Like, I wasn't sure what the whole idea was. And they just cut to him, and then Jey Uso came out, and that was a very awkward. Again, this show was really, really strange. Like, it didn't feel like some of it felt special production-wise, but it didn't feel the way I thought it was going to. Like, I really expected this Raw to be like one of the historic ones where it would start the build to WrestleMania. And really, when you look at the WrestleMania card, there's not really that many long-term feuds going on right now, unlike the last couple years. They've been building to Punk versus Seth at Mania for a while, and they did it here because plans changed. Roman and Solo was supposed to be at Mania. They did it here because plans changed. I get it. I understand why they blew it off early. But it's also a weird thing because now you've got a WrestleMania coming up that's only going to have most of the angles on the show are only going to have a 3-month build. What's Drew McIntyre going to do at Mania or Damian Priest? Like, there's a lot of mystery here. It's confusing. I did like seeing Kevin Owens attack Roman because that also hasn't been resolved yet. But overall, I was very let down by this show. I just didn't like it that much, man. And I told you why. Like, the Rock thing was weird. It just wasn't all that exciting and didn't get me excited for the next week, much less the next 3 months. So I was, oh my God, it's like we're cursed as wrestling fans. Look, I know some folks are going to disagree with me on this one. I already see on social media people like the show, and there are things about the show I liked, but I was very let down. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Take care.